reaching up and making the grab. Odell Beckham Jr. Stafford buys time. Protection is good, and so is the pass. Henderson came out of the backfield. Jefferson in motion. Henderson, nice cutback. Stafford rolling and throwing. Caught, touchdown. Stafford caught on the run. Cup, who else? Comes out of the slot to the right, looks that way, fires that way. Cup makes the grab at about the 18-yard line. Pass, Cup, got it, touchdown. Burrow trying to keep it going, gets spun down, gets it away, and incomplete. It looked like P-Ron might have had a shot to make the grab, but the Rams now running down to celebrate with a defensive play.
And guess who? Guess who? I mean, you don't even have to think about it. Do not even have to think about it.
Pointing to the ring finger.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of East Coast Rams. I'm your co-host, Ashton, with my awesome co-host here, Zac. We are going over the preseason. Zac, we got football, actual real-life football, not theoretical football, not fake football. Kind of real football.
Kind of real football. We're one step closer to the actual game itself. Yeah, we got through preseason week number 1. I'm just gonna say it's what I expected. Didn't expect anything great. Didn't expect anything super awful. So it was, all in all, it was fine. Just fine.
Fine.
But that's the Rams. The Rams don't treat preseason other than trying out the rookies, trying to make sure that there's some cohesion. They have a lot to work on as far as cohesion works, but we'll dive into all that here in a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's caveat a few things. It is the preseason. I think trying to paint an entire trajectory of a team or of a player off of preseason games is silly. Now you can get insights into that player and like his kind of like where he is in that point in time, a little bit different traits and stuff like that. I do believe it's useful in that element and getting a sense of what the staff thinks of certain players. Definitely. But guys, we're not going 0-17 because of this game. Just like if we had won, I mean, if the preseason was any indication of anything, the Ravens would have won the Super Bowl last 5 years. If for people who don't know, they won like last 42 preseason games in a row. It's nice to win them. I want these young kids to get good experience. But it's just another measuring stick we can look at before the season and kind of get that data points off of it.
Yeah, a lot of the hot takes that I saw after Twitter from the night of and then the next day, people were just like, yep, all right, we're done. Let's move on to 2024. I'm like, whoa, guys, we didn't even have our 3 best players playing in the game. Like, let's give it a shot. Let's see how we do when we're 100% healthy. We have our starting O-line, we have our quarterback, we have our receiver, we have Aaron Donald doing his thing. Like, let's wait and cast judgment until we see the first few games of what the Rams have planned with their starting O-line, their starting offense, and their starting defense. Because we did see a sneak preview of what the special teams looks like. That's not going to change, obviously, unless they decide something completely crazy here in the next 2 weeks, which we'll kind of dive in. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to our offensive defense, they're still going to make tweaks. We're still missing the key players. So there's still a lot to happen in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah. So we're going to go over a few things that me and you noticed while watching the game, and then we'll kind of go into individual stats and players, general. Start off, NFL Network was kind of a nightmare for a lot of people, especially on the East Coast. And seeing her name is East Coast, we just have to say it's like come on, guys. Like, if you're gonna advertise something, have it that way, or just get your advertising correctly. Because a lot of people were expecting to be able to watch this. I ended up having to sign up for like NFL Plus. I know other people, let's say, put on the pirate hat, and it's. I think it's
Sure.
stupid. Uh, Ultimately, like, just get it correct next time.
Now, let me ask you a question. Did you buy YouTube TV?
No,
The NFL ticket?
no, not yet. I will. I'll begin Sunday ticket.
Okay. Yeah, because I was just on Twitter just recently, and everyone was complaining about the price for Sunday ticket, which I get, but I was just curious if anyone who had the Sunday, if they had the NFL ticket, had any issues with getting the game.
You don't get preseason games with NFL Sunday ticket. That's
Really?
only
Okay.
NFL Plus. Yeah. And
Okay.
NFL Plus doesn't give you regular season games at all.
So I'm
It's
not gonna really describe how I got into watching the game, other than that I was using the actual NFL, the Rams actual app. I was able to watch it. It was interesting. I don't know how the NFL Network did it. Who was your announcers? Do you know? Was it Whitworth?
yes, we had Whitworth and Andrew Sig. I can't say his last name. I believe it was.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the same. That was the same broadcast then. Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, I don't. I mean, did you guys have regular commercial breaks? I just saw like a wide shot of SoFi Stadium while they like when there were supposed to be normal commercial breaks. So I thought that was interesting.
Uh, ours, mine just had a giant NFL Plus logo.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, yes, NFL needs to boost needs to be better at, when they promote things, they need to be better at actually providing that content, because like I said, you have people on the East Coast who really want to watch the Rams, and we should, in this day and age, we are so spread out that we can't just focus on the local broadcast, or everyone being local. It's not the case anymore, especially with the Rams moving back to LA within just relatively recent time. Like they still have people in St. Louis, they have people on the East Coast. Like, this team is not just LA focused. It is more of a national sport. And if that's the way we're supposed to be taking it, then we need to do a little bit better about providing access to all fans who want to watch it, not just the local fans.
Yeah. And I think it's a fair critique from people who can't afford it. Like, stuff hasn't been greatest with the economy. And, like, really, I feel like not having a team option when almost every other league does for their streaming option, that's a little bit cheaper for people who just want to watch their team. I think you're just losing out on money. But,
So my one critique for that, and I think $400 is a lot? Yes. Do I think that when you kind of break it down, like if you went to a game, if you bought season tickets, if you went to a bar and watched the game, you're going to be spending per game more than $30. And I get that. I get that take. My only thing is, give it to me month to month. Let me pay it over, make me sign a 1-year deal, but let me pay it month to month. Don't let me pay $450 up front and
yeah.
then and to watch the game. Like, again, when you are on a budget, you may be able to scram up $30 a month, but trying to say $400 this month, that's a little difficult for people. And I don't think we should just, always just swipe the card and, hope that we can pay for it at the end of the month. I think some people want to do that month to month. And even if it was just a little bit more, $30, $32 a month instead of 28, I think is the average if you divide that out. I just think that it's a missed cause to give people an extra option to pay the price.
Mhm. All right, let's talk about the actual game. First stringer vets. Note that because there are some first string rookies potentially that did play. So the vets didn't play. What stood out to you, Zach?
About the game itself,
Yeah, just like generic. Like, what was the big thing that you took away? You're like, we need to work on this, or like, I really think this player could be something.
sure. So, I mean, I'll stick with the defense as a whole. The defense needs to get a little bit more in sync. Again, I
Yeah.
know we're playing a lot of rookies, a lot of people who don't have the full NFL experience, and I get it. But our defense just looked pretty much atrocious. I mean, I mean, the amount of runs they let through, the yards they got after that. I mean, it was just not pretty. But you look at the offensive side of the ball, and I think you did see some sparks. Is Stetson Bennett a clone of Matthew Stafford who could be a QB1? At this point, no. But is he a good backup? I think he could be. If he needs to take the role and take the reins for a game or two because of something that happens, I think he can manage the game. We clearly saw he had a little bit of a learning curve for his first few throws. But once he got comfortable and he got settled in, he was making decent throws. So I'll stop there and let you kind of take that all in.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And let's kind of focus on Stetson Bennett here for a second. Me and you will agree. Those first three throws, atrocious. Even though Ben Skoranek, I think it was to Ben, should have caught the second one. And I think that probably would have helped his confidence a little bit with the third one. But either way, really bad two throws. But we saw this weekend, there were first rounders throwing picks. So, like, that's not to excuse the bad throws. It's just to point out, like, these rookies take some time to adjust to that speed. And I saw Stinson adjust quicker than any other rookie QB this preseason so far, week one. I really thought he looked comfortable. He was throwing really accurate, like tight spirals, just anticipating the routes. He had a few drops. Touchdown that was dropped by our tight end that we just signed. Just a lot of really good throws, a lot of catches kind of left on the table. Uh, you know, I was happy when we drafted him. I thought he was going to be a very late round pick guy, but I thought he had a lot of upside and not a lot of downside if you get someone that late. A little bit more risky in the fourth round, but still, I think you said it best. I think he has a really high floor, and that's what you want in a backup. You want consistency for a few weeks. And I think we saw he has potential to be a little bit more. He has really great mobility. And let me just say, Zach, the people who were attacking him, saying he was running too much, those were designed bootlegs that our tight ends weren't picking up the edge rusher correctly. He didn't really run a lot outside of like twice, and he ended up nearly getting a first down on one.
Yeah, I like you said, I think Bennett he has that potential. He has that design, and maybe in a year or two he could be a starting quarterback. But he is a good backup. I mean, you look at his stats, and he performed way better than Wolford or Perkins did last year. And so I think that just says something more about him. Yes, you had Perkins who could probably run the ball maybe a little bit better, using his legs, but again, that's not sustainable in this NFL.
Got to be able
unfortunately,
to throw.
And you have to be able to throw. And I think Bennett proved it. I think he was able to do it. What was his average? I was trying to find his average yards. I don't have that, but
I think it was like 9. It was higher than anyone else rookie wise, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, it really was. He was definitely having trouble processing the defense in the first drive, at least in the first half of the first drive. He got a little bit more comfortable, like you said. I think half of that was reading defense. The play of the game was a little bit too fast. I felt like the routes weren't necessarily great on the first drive either until like Puka Nakua started getting really open. Um, but outside of that, just really impressive play by him. I want to see him grow, and I want to see some adjustment by the entire offense and defense going into a preseason game too.
Yeah. And I think Puka is the one who stands out the most to me. When you just see him, I mean, he seems electric, and I think he's going to be a rising star within this Rams organization. Eventually, potentially, depending on how this year goes, could be going into that wide receiver one, or not one, wide receiver two, wide receiver three. Sorry, Cooper has that locked pretty good. So I could definitely see him, being a rising star within this Rams organization, especially his willingness to learn. Like he is asking Cooper Kupp everything. He's soaking up all the information that he possibly can, from our Triple Crown.
And executing it mid-game.
Yeah, and so it's just he's electric. He seems electric to watch. So I'm really looking forward to him kind of getting in there and then him catching his first NFL touchdown. Yes, it was preseason, but it builds. I feel like that was the moment that it built some confidence, both with Bennett and with Puka. Like it just builds that confidence once you get that first touchdown, whether it's in preseason or not. You got it. It's in the bag. You can do it again, and let's just move forward. And Stetson not to throw that interception. Like I know he had two of them was close to being intercepted. Like just not to have that on your first game is also just like, okay, I can do this. I settled down, and being able to still go in there and throw that touchdown after, those two attempts, I think it says a lot. But Puka Nacua hands down gets my game ball of the day. Really excellent, and looking forward to seeing him grow.
Yeah, Puka was electric when he was in there.
But
I would say he's really good in short area bursts. Like you saw a really good burst from him off of the top of his route. I wonder why he did a hook in the end zone. I believe it was in our third drive whenever Stinson kind of rolls out and tries to throw, and people were like yelling that he basically threw a pick there, and I was like, it was a bad throw, but all defenders were moving, and the chances that gets caught is very rare. Like, but it wasn't smart though. So I'm interested to see how we use him again preseason. I don't want to declare any like player like gonna be a wide receiver 2 off of preseason, but I think there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of potential there.
Roll the dice.
Me and you, we liked the pick of Puka when we got him. We thought he could be very like a really good gadget player to replace Brandon Powell. But we both saw after watching some of his tape that like he had some potential to be very shifty, kind of like a hybrid between Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp, almost play style wise. And we'll see if he can play at the speed in the actual league whenever regular season starts. But I'm excited by him. We've seen more from him than we see from a lot of wide receivers on our depth chart in recent years. When you're talking about deeper.
When you talk about that, I mean, it's a good point. I mean, you look at last preseason, and Lance McCutcheon was outstanding last preseason, and then we didn't see him he was electric, and we didn't see him at all throughout the whole. I mean, for pretty much the whole regular season, when we had injury upon injury upon injury upon injury, we just never saw him, and not sure why. Now he had an okay performance. I mean, he had 2 decent catches. Lance McCutcheon did, but it's
late in the game.
It was late in the game, but your point is well taken. Like we can't always take it, but I don't know. It's just, I don't know if it's Rams doing well in their marketing. Like they're putting him out everywhere. He's talking to everybody. What we have been able to see from the videos that are displayed, he's doing really well. He was doing really well in training camp. And then to see it kind of put into it in an NFL game, granted preseason, it's just encouraging. Cause like I said, I feel like we're slowly taking the pieces and putting them all together. And that wasn't really the case with Lance McCutcheon. I think we all thought he was going to do well, and we were very surprised when we saw him last preseason. This time, I think it's like Puka. I think we've just kind of like gave him this, this wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, just on kind of his OTAs and things like that. And he proved himself in training camp, and he's proving himself now in preseason.
Yeah.
But what about the other kind of the wide receivers on the that played that night? I mean, I think one of the other key ones was Tyler Johnson. He's one of the only other veterans that the Rams picked up with Demarcus Robinson. So what is your take between that kind of battle? We kind of talked a little bit about it last time, but how are you feeling about Tyler Johnson and that kind of
I basically look at Tyler Johnson and Demarcus Robinson as like very professional, like solid wide receiver depth. I think they'll get the job done. They'll be able to get you 8-9 yards whenever you need them to. Potential big play, I believe, with Demarcus Robinson. He's been kind of underutilized in other teams, so he could get a lot of good snaps on this team. Tyler Johnson could have something there. He just hasn't been uh, gotten a lot of focus when it comes to the offense. And I think the Rams got those guys as insurance, basically for injury or if neither Tutu or Van Jefferson don't take that next step. You could say Jefferson is kind of in that same area as those two, but if he takes a step back and Tutu doesn't take a step forward in regular season, they will in a heartbeat put those two guys over and give them a shot.
So the question is, do you think they're going to keep both? Because that's, and then what, slide Lance maybe to practice squad? Because that's where we're going to come down to is if you look at the numbers, because you have Cooper, Van, Tutu, Puka, Skoranek, and then you're kind of going down the list and you got like three people left and you're down to Tyler Johnson, DeMarcus.
I think DeMarcus has already made the team. To be honest, I think it's between Tyler Johnson and Lance, kind of. And I think Tyler Johnson's winning that. Lance is going to have to impress in practice, which mean you don't get to see, so we can't really predict that. And also impress on these scrimmages. The two, I think we do the Raiders and someone else. And then in preseason, he's going to have to blow them out because I think Tyler Johnson has already made an impression. I'm not talking about this game. I'm talking about camp. And this game is just kind of like reinforcing that narrative. So I would expect to see him on practice squad if other team doesn't sign him, which, you know, I was for putting him on the team last year because I thought he was going to be least used. That's not the case this year. I think we have enough depth. We don't have to risk playing him, and if he gets signed, I'm not really worried about it, unless if there's injuries.
Yeah, I mean, and I agree. I agree with what you're saying. There's some other standouts. Austin Tremmel, he played a decent game last night too, or Saturday night. Thinking Monday, and it's not Sunday. So, and then, yeah, I mean, that was kind of about it. You had Tyler Hudson and then Christian Sims were also on the receiving side, but very minimal playing time. So,
you want to talk about the O-line?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you want to start good or bad?
Well, let's go ahead and just knock out the bad real quick.
Logan Bruss, Zach, our former early third round pick, not looking so hot there at right tackle. He was getting cooked.
Yeah, and that's definitely not a good sign. You know, what is this? This is really his only second NFL game, both preseason, but he's got a big learning curve, and you know, we thought he was going to potentially take a starting spot, maybe as a guard, but they decided to shift him back and put him, keep him behind Havenstein, and he's got a lot to learn in these next 2 weeks if he wants to continue to keep that spot, because you know how the Rams are. They're not very complacent, and if you're not feeling your job, there's someone else to take your spot. And as much as we kept complaining about our O-line last year, you know, we pretty much lost, other than Havenstein, every single offensive lineman plus their backups. That's not really it could be the case, I guess, if it miraculously happened again. But let's say that doesn't happen again. There's a lot more depth that we have that we could shift people around that, you know, Logan Bruss still wouldn't come out even if something did happen to Havenstein.
Yeah, he was terrible in the run game. He wasn't much. He was a little bit better in pass protection whenever I was looking at him. it just, man, he every time there was a sack, it seemed like he was just getting beat, and if not letting up pressure. Hopefully he can get a little bit better and work on that. So it's a little concerning. But let's go to positive. Zach Thomas. Zach Thomas looked fantastic, especially in run offense. Um, I think he got a pancake or two, if I'm not misremembering. He looked really good. His pass off or his pass blocking definitely looks like it needs a little bit of work. Uh, but I was really happy with what I was seeing. He definitely looked good to me.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Not more I really want to say about that.
Okay, let's go over DBs. Trey Hodges Tomlinson played for, I think, a quarter. He looked great. He was locking down Quinn Johnson, my number one wide receiver of the draft, and he looks a lot taller. Sorry, he is not as tall as people want him to be, but he plays a lot taller than he is. Just fantastic technique, playing trail, similar to Ramsey in that regard, but just able to have pass breakups, stop the touchdown. Just really impressive, Zach.
Did he have a flag that game, or maybe I'm thinking of a training camp? I agree. He was electric. He was probably the best thing that we saw on the defense the whole night.
I think he had a hold on the first series of
Okay.
the
I might be
Chargers.
wrong. I can't
Maybe.
remember. I think there was. I also can be going back to training camp when they were just doing their scrimmages, but no, like you said, I think he was the most electric of that defense. There really wasn't a whole lot going on. I mean, shoot, the Rams. I don't even know. I can't even go on much with the defense because they let the exact same move happen twice, and the Chargers got 2 touchdowns out of it. So, it's the exact same play. Almost the defense played almost the exact same role that they played too. So it was not good. But Tomlinson definitely did perform the best, in my opinion, compared to the rest.
Yeah, other DB out there fighting for a roster spot. Jordan Jones led the team in tackling, but gave up 2 huge passes. I think a 30 and maybe the 40-yard touchdown. It might have been a little bit shorter than that. But either way, gave up 2 big plays, but was a tackling machine. So positive and negatives there for Jordan Jones. Learning experience for him.
Mm-hmm. We already talked about the run defense. It was horrible. They let so many yards run. That was
not good.
Cannot happen. That could not happen.
It was funny because the Chargers' first drive, or first 2 drives, I was like, oh, our run defense is looking solid. And as soon as I wrote that down, they started slashing us for like 15, 20 yards a pop. And I was like, man, that's why I don't take notes, because they get ruined. Ethan Evans looked really, really good. Our kicker, not so much, Zach. Any comment on our special teams? I'll just leave it out there, that 80-yard touchdown.
Yeah. So preseason, or again, preseason. And most of the time, your special teams are full of your rookies, your depth chart down the line. It's good, get some getting used to for them to play in that role. So I hope that they do get better. Special teams coach has a lot to do these next 2 weeks.
It was really bad.
It was a bad.
We got a flag on, I think, like the first 4 special team plays.
Yeah.
It's not good, Zach.
Not good at all. Not good at all.
Yeah. Oh, well, let's talk about stats to get that depression out of our systems, because I'm getting flashbacks to 2019. Or 2020. No, special teams was terrible on both. So, yeah. QBs, Stetson Bennett ended the night 17 of 29, 191 yards, 1 touchdown. Brett Rippon, 3
Seems
of
like a backup quarterback stats to me.
Brett Rippon, 3 of 6, 11 yards, and I wrote down lots of checkdowns. Not even good checkdowns, just checkdowns.
Yeah, he's,
He was afraid, man. Like I just wrote, I was like, this guy doesn't want to push the ball down. Like I get to a certain point, you don't want to throw picks, and getting too aggressive can get you burned. I understand, but going to the total opposite and being so passive, you're not doing anything, but checking down to your running back when he's covered, and the defense can just sit on all the routes because they know you're not gonna throw it over the top. It doesn't help. And I understand our rushing game was pretty bad at that point, especially in the first quarter. Didn't help them. But that's why you have to throw it deep. That way they don't stack the box against the running backs. Yeah, he looked to me like a guy that you know what you're getting with him. He's been in this league for 3-4 years. And, I'm sorry to say it's not much upside. He's a body that can kind of throw the ball.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. 100%. Let's talk about the rushing. This was, we're trying to figure out who's going to be, really RB3 in this kind of stature. But, we had Zach Evans who kind of led with 8 carries, 34 yards, averaging 4.2. Ronnie Rivers, slightly better average of 5.2 yards, but 6 carries, 31.
He
Royce
would have
Freeman.
had more yards if that touchdown wasn't called back.
Fair. And then Royce Freeman, who, took the place of Sony Michel in this group, the kind of the veteran presence, I guess, if you will, for the Rams. 7 carries, 26 yards, averaging 3.7, but did get that touchdown, which was nice. It was a really nice play by Stetson Bennett to, kind of toss him the ball and go on the inside. So it's good. It's fine.
I think Freeman is practice squad depth. To be honest, I'm like,
Could be.
I think Ronnie Rivers has a lot of heart and a lot of fight. I still think his run blocking needs a little, or not run blocking, pass blocking needs a little bit of work. Same thing with Zach Evans. I thought they both kind of struggled whenever they were called to block pass rushers. But I think Rivers has potential, a lot of growth potential. In Zach Evans, he showed the same thing, but neither were necessarily electric. I think kind of hard to be when our run blocking was not good. Not good, Zach.
No.
Just not there. So
no, but let's just remember, it's not going to be the starting O line. Was not out there. Let's see how that is once it's there. Yeah, and kind of we'll kind of see who was the starting center. Do you know? I ask you point blank on the spot. I can't remember who actually started the game at center.
I think it was that practice squad. Let me look.
But
I had to start up whenever the game was going on.
It's fine. You can answer if you can look at it while I kind of go through this. We've already talked about the receiving, so we're not going to really dive too much back into that. Tyler Johnson saw the most receptions with 70 got 70 yards, 14 average. So that was pretty good. That was pretty much the highest next to Lance McCutcheon as far as the average goes, but Lance McCutcheon only caught 2 for 14 yards each. So that's kind of about that. I guess
it was McAllister.
Okay. So,
yep. Someone I knew not to pay attention to because I didn't
And that's kind of the point is that,
Depth-wise,
again,
yeah.
it's we're looking at depth. We're not looking at what the starting O-line is going to be, whether it's Brian Allen, whether it's Coleman Shelton. That's a better center who's going to be able to help provide the blocking necessary. You have your starting guards. Um, like I said, if you have your whole starting O-line, it's going to make a world of difference for that running game.
Avila looked solid. I mean,
I think he's again, he's that offensive star who we've been saying for weeks that I think he can do it. Now we got to see more proof in a real game, but I mean it seems like he has a lock for a starting role.
let's go over stats for receivers. Tyler Johnson led the way, like you said earlier. 5 receptions for 70 yards. Really good night. Crisp routes. Really good catches by him. Solid hands. Average of 14. Austin Trammell, I would say he was dependable. He was solid. Puka was electric when he was there. He was open a few times, didn't get the ball. Lance McCutcheon, you know, little production. And then I really think everyone else, DeMarcus Robinson was in for like a few plays. So that was kind of weird to me that they just threw him in there a little bit in the third quarter. Ben Skoranek, not a great night. I think I remember specifically him having 1 drop, maybe 2. Do you know how many drops he had?
I don't know if I don't know off the top of my head. I was kind of trying to check on that while you were kind of going over that. I don't know how much did he play though? Did he play all that much?
I think he played the first half.
Okay. It's hard when you're throwing players in all the time. It's
Oh
really hard to
yeah.
keep track of like when they were in, how long they were in for. I know there's percentages out there, but like it's so hard when you're rotating so many different receivers in and your quarterback's changing and they're just trying different things. It's really hard to learn all these things on the fly. So bear with us as far once we get through these preseason, we have a set roster. It's so much easier to follow along and know when players are in and when players are out and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Let's
But
go over defense stats for whatever you call that Saturday night. Hey, there are some positives on defense, like we mentioned earlier. Jordan Jones leads team with tackles and 1 assist. Keir Thomas, I thought he had a solid night. Solid night by Keir Thomas.
1.5 sacks. I mean, that's
Not bad.
good. Impressive. The only other one who got a sack was Tanner Ingle, which I thought he actually performed pretty well too. His name was called quite a bit when they were doing stops. So, I was
Larrell Murchison almost got himself a sack also. And he had a few times where he was kind of bursting off or through the O-line. I think Larrell Murchison is a really good quality depth there on D-line.
Oh, for sure. I'm agreeing.
Rose Boom, 2 tackles, 2 assists. LeCount 3 tackles, but he was kind of getting burnt, and the Rams released him. And guys, we don't want to see guys lose their jobs. I do think you have to remember this is a human being, has a family. It sucks, but it is a business, and I'm sure he'll probably get opportunities elsewhere. Potentially, we could bring him back on practice squad.
Yep.
Anyone else really jumped off the page on defense?
No, I don't think so. I was just kind of going down my list again and seeing if there was anything final, but yeah, we got to work on that defensive line. It's bad.
Not good.
Not great. Not great. That's the episode title. Not great.
Yeah, I mean, historically, too, this D line outside Aaron Donald has been more oriented against stopping the run. Not great pressure by all of our D linemen outside of Aaron Donald in the last few years. I want to see that change really badly because Aaron Donald and uh, we've been getting reports from camp that they are starting to double and triple team Aaron Donald in camp to kind of like simulate that and hoping these other players can like start picking up some of the slack a little bit. Got to if you want to be successful.
Yeah, and one thing that I want to quickly touch on this before we kind of wrap things up, but like the edge, and I feel like we kind of left the edge players off a little bit of this, and they had some good plays at the last quarter. That's where they got 2 of their sacks, but we kept saying they need an edge. They need an edge. They need to go out and get an edge. And I think it's still obvious that the edge position is still a weak point. Um, I mean, you have Michael Hoyt and you have Byron Young. Young showed some promise. Obviously, his skill needs to be improved a little bit. I mean, he would have had a sack as well if he didn't do the face mask call, uh, or if a face mask call wasn't called on him. So I think he has some potential. We need to clean some things up and make sure he knows exactly where to pull down and things like that. Um, but like you said, Keir Thomas was good. Daniel Hardy was decent as well. But those were kind of plays. There were plays in the fourth quarter. So second half. I guess it may not necessarily been the fourth quarter, but the Chargers also aren't using their best in the second half as well. So it's kind of what you have to take with a grain of salt. Is you saw some spark, but how much was it good against a team who's also not playing at their best as well?
Yeah, I
So
definitely think we need to sign a vet. Depth is just not looking there so far. Anything else, Zach? You want to go over?
I don't think so. I think that wraps it up as far as this week's goes. McVay, I mean, he had pretty much praise for Puka, which we already gave, so I don't think we need to go through that. And he also gave praise to Tomlinson. Unless you have anything specifically you want to pull out from his quote, I think we're all in agreement that those were the 2 stars from the offensive side and from the defensive side of the stocks going up for them.
Yeah. Definitely looking forward to a preseason game. I thought for a preseason game, it was watchable after we got past the first drive and a half, I think. I'm sorry. I don't mean to keep on ripping on Ripon, but mm,
We'll get there. We'll get there. But next, we got to look at the Raiders. The Raiders are coming. This is going to be preseason game number 2, Saturday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time, 6 p.m. Pacific. Don't really like these late games on the East Coast. Um, it's a lot. It's a lot. I don't know. So we'll see how it goes. My daughter has a softball game doubleheader that lasts until after 10. So it's
whew,
going to be a late one for me. So I'll watch as much of it I can, but I'm looking forward to it. Again, we're just going to watch cleanup. We're going to see if they can improve what they did the week before. I don't see many changes as far as who's going to be playing, who's not going to be playing. But I just want my key. What I'm looking for is just can we clean up some of the mistakes that we made in the first half? We don't have to win. I don't care about winning preseason. We can lose all preseason. All I care. I can't remember. I think our record when we won the Super Bowl was either 0-3 or 1-2. So it wasn't anything impressive at that point either. So all I say is I just want to see cleanup. How about you?
yeah, just focus on the details, like small things build up, technique. I feel like a lot of these young guys are still growing. I want to see growth. That's big thing. And especially from defense. Uh, but yeah, man, I feel bad for you. You're gonna miss Stinson go off for 9 touchdowns,
I'll take
600
that
yards.
sacrifice. Hey, if he does that, I'll take that sacrifice.
Yeah, uh, and should be interesting.
Yep. Oh, one more thing. I will not forget. Now we are recording this on Monday night, and it is Rampage's birthday. So we need to, happy birthday to Rampage, best mascot in the game.
Yeah.
So happy birthday, Rampage.
Happy birthday.
But yeah, I think with that we're going to close it out. We should be back to doing week to week podcast going over each game. So stick around with that. We are going to do a giveaway of a shirt separate from our Fantasy League one. So details will come in the next 2 days, I promise, on the details on how you can get one of those awesome East Coast Rams t-shirts. Really looking forward to it. I got a lot of feedback that people would like a free one, so we're going to do it. So we're going to wrap it up on this week's episode of the East Coast Rams podcast. Thank you to everyone who subscribes to the podcast each and every week. We're just Rams fans talking to other Rams fans, so we hope that you get some enjoyment out of the podcast. Please find us on all major platforms. You can find us on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it. Instagram. We still got to change our logo apparently down there. Still has the birdie. We're on Instagram pretty heavily on there. If you want to follow us on Threads, you can follow us there as well.
All the medias.
I think Ashton spends a lot of time on Threads, so you could find us on our handles as well. I won't go through them. Oh, I guess you're for an audio podcast. I'm at Zac Merritt. That's at Rams Fan Ashton 1 for your listening pleasure. But you can always send questions to us at feedback at eastcoastrams.com, or like I said, hit us up on Twitter or Threads or wherever you want. You'll find us. Anything else you want to add, Ashton?
No, just like and subscribe and leave comments down of who you think was the best highlights of the preseason so far and the people who have disappointed you.
Yes, video portions of this podcast can be found at youtube.com/East Coast Rams. And you can find us on audio platforms on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple, Spotify, Google, Pocket Cast, and wherever your listening ears takes you. With that, Ramley, we'll talk to you guys next week. Whose house? Rams house.